believe you have in your packet PowerPoint presentation. Are we going to make it to that in a minute here? You should have on agenda page 11, I believe, thank you, PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to walk through this. Mr. McKeska's done most of the heavy lifting on this. I'll give him his credit, and Chris Knapp hadn't done much of anything, but he's going to take credit for it. Um, so next slide, please. The technical construction standards and specifications is a document that we use on a day-to-day basis in our office, and I'll give you some more details about that so you can help understand exactly what it does. But it generally relates to things related to water, sewer, streets, and drainage as we develop things within the city, improve things within the city that we own and maintain. So the history of it, the next slide, please, is uh, years ago, the Council of Governments developed a book of specifications to use for the region. People kind of used that for years, and then there were a lot of things that people didn't necessarily like about that, and so people started doing their own thing and branching off from that. And then a few years ago, there was kind of an update to that book, and it's widely used throughout the region. Still has a lot of great information in it, but it doesn't have everything that we need in it. So most cities have another document of their engineering standards, construction standards for public improvements, and that's what our TCSS is. Next slide, please. So the structure of the TCSS is it's divided into some chapters and appendices. There's four main chapters: general requirements, and then paving and street information. Then there's a section on drainage, and then water and sewer is in the final main chapter. And there's a lot of figures and tables sprinkled in with these appendices that are in the back of it. We do have what's called an addendum to the COG specs, which a lot of people adopt that helps further amplify some of those and use some of the things that people want to pull out and use in their base uh, design standards. Next slide, please. So the major updates we have in here, we've talked about this already, but I'm going to reiterate this again. Excuse me, we've changed our paving design standards from a 20-year design to a 30-year design. And this requires updated thicknesses and requirements that are going to make these pavements last longer, but it's also going to require developers to invest more on the front end. But it gives us a chance to having a pavement definitely last 30 years and exceed that is what our goal is. Excuse me. And you'll remember in our drainage, we had our drainage master plan from a couple of years ago that we had as a task, and that was to update our methodology for calculating storm events. That we're following what the region's going to, and this is more developer friendly, but it still meets the goal of helping our community drain well and make sure that things don't, there aren't any negative impacts from drainage, whether it's built new or it's retrofitted into an existing area. We want to continue to make sure that our community drains well in general. Next slide, please. The cross sections, we use cross sections that help explain what we want for streets, and we've updated those, which shows the thickness. We also have cross sections in here that have what's called utility assignments. And so what we do under new streets is we want an organized fashion of development. So we want to know where sanitary sewer and storm are. They're generally under the pavement. We want the water line out from underneath the pavement. That way, if it ruptures for some reason in the future, you don't have to dig the pavement up. And then we're requesting to move all the franchise utilities outside the right of way in easements that are provided there. That gives us a cleaner corridor. A lot of our existing areas are so jammed with utilities right now, it's hard to dig up our own water lines and fix them because of phone line, fiber optic lines, gas lines, and other things that are in the way. The last bullet on this page is important. You're updating your subdivision ordinance tonight, I believe, on second reading, and We have our comprehensive plan, and the TCSS complements those two documents because it's referred to in your subdivision ordinance and it's also referred to in your comp plan. And we need to make sure all three of those documents travel together and complement each other. Next slide, please. This is a typical section for a residential street in there. And you can see that it basically, if I give this to an engineer or a developer, this pretty well answers most of their questions about what we expect to see when everything's built, how it should be organized within the right of way. This actually shows the utilities in it as well. You can see below the pavement, you see the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer, and then you'll see on the right-hand side, the water line out from underneath the pavement as I discussed before. Well, next slide, please. This is more of a thoroughfare, a boulevard, a divided one. And this shows without the utility assignments in it. This just shows where do we want the sidewalks? Where do we want the paving? What are the dimensions that we want to see in an organized fashion within there from a horizontal standpoint? And what does the profile of the pavement need to look like? Every bit of the information is contained on this one drawing for somebody to design it from. One more, next slide, please. There's another utility assignment page for a typical residential type street. And again, it shows a little more detail about how everything's laid out within the corridor and what we use this for. And then next slide, please. Again, we have the addendum to the COG specs that's in here. Our general construction notes that we use on all of our projects are embedded in this, and that helps us to have consistent notes and everything we need covered. Typically go in the front of the plans. It makes it consistent from project to project because every one we get is typically different and it takes a long time to review those. We just want to go to a standard in all of our construction plans. We know exactly what's in there and what we're telling them to do. Again, we have some new details that we've added and we've updated the ones we did have. We've also created a checklist, and this is something that Mike and I have been wanting to do for a long time. So we have in the embedded in the back of the document, there's about a 5-page checklist. So we're going to make sure every developer that comes in gets this checklist. So when they bring it back, this requires them to do all the work that we want them to do, and we won't go forward till we get the checklist because that means they've read every section. They've done everything we've asked them to, and they know where they may have a problem that they want to discuss with us. And then there's just other numerous other updates and additions, most of them minor, but just to help us manage construction for public improvements as we go forward. We're doing this by ordinance. I actually thought that we originally adopted the TCSS by resolution, but we actually found the original ordinance from 2005 where we adopted the TCSS and so we're updating that. We gave that to Mary Gail. That's in your packet as one of the attachments with this. She's reviewed it. And on your next meeting on the 29th, we expect to have first reading of an ordinance to adopt the updated technical construction standards and specifications. And then with that, I would like, if you don't mind, Dora, before we get into questions, I'd like to go to page 25, please. Thank you. So Mike, being the director of utilities, decided to embed a picture of an elevated storage tank on the front of the TCSS. That's kind of self-serving, but it looks nice. And so we have a new pretty front cover for it. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This is the table of contents. You can see how detailed it gets under. I told you it was just general notes, general comments under the first one, then paving, and then drainage and water. But you can see how this thing gets very detailed. If you'll keep going another page or two, you can see how it's broken out. And there's a lot of, again, tables in this and appendices and figures that we use to help tell the story for this. If you'll go to agenda page 29, I'll end my comments here. So I call you to the very first paragraph on this, if you don't mind. This is the purpose of the TCSS. The purpose of it is to provide a set of standards for designing streets, thoroughfares, drainage facilities, water lines, sanitary sewer, and preparing construction plans for such facilities that are to be owned and operated or maintained by the city of Terrell, Texas. These standards will be used by staff, contractors, consulting engineers, et cetera, and so on. So we give you the general purpose there. It's very basic, but very important. It says develop a set of plans for public improvements that we will eventually own to make sure they're done the way we want them in accordance with all the things that we think are important to be embedded within that. So the document itself is 144 pages long. I'm not going to go over any more of it at this point here, but I will stop and see if there's any questions and see if either one of my colleagues in the audience have any more comments they want to make to this. Yeah, he didn't do anything. So, you have anything you want to add, Mike, that I haven't said? Please, come on. He's done a lot of work on this, so he's got to say something.
I'd hate to open up the cover to a committee because there'd be a number of choices of pictures. I wasn't trying to focus on the utility. It's just something I had. If y'all don't like it, I'll be glad to find another picture. Okay. Now, the only thing I was just going to say, in this general update and review, it's been going on off and on for a period of years, actually. And there was probably a list of 130 to 150 items when it was reviewed and said, okay, do we need to update this? So there's a lot of little tweaks that have gone on to get to this point. So I just wanted to bring that out and also say thanks to Richard Dormeyer with Freeman Milliken. He spent quite a bit of time off and on and advising us on some things what other cities are doing, trying to develop some consistency in construction standards or design standards. And then he also helped update a lot of these details. So just say.
All right.
So any questions for us, Mayor?
Yeah, no, thank you, Steve. I think it's a smart move to have a uniform design and standards for the city of Terrell. I want to thank Mike, Chris, and Steve for working to get this to the council. Chris, you know, you were part of the organization when they began to pick on you a little bit. So welcome to the city of Terrell.
Well, I do want to say, Mayor,
yes.
thank you for amplifying that. We are picking on him, and he is fitting in quite well. He picks back. But you know, we've given time for Chris to, I mean, he's only been here 6 weeks or so. And so we wanted to give him time when he got here. It's one of the first things I handed him. I said, look at this 144-page document because we're updating it. And if you want to speak now or forever hold your peace. We haven't updated it. It was originally adopted in 2005, so it's lasted for 17 years and worked very well for us. And so we expect it to last for many, many years in the future. He's going to be the primary one to carry it out. And so we want to make sure that he's comfortable with it. And he's had some good comments to it as well. So
Great. No, I know there's a lot of time, sweat, and effort put into this. I'm glad to see that we have a paving design standard that will help these roads and streets to last longer. That was really good. And then also getting those utilities and stuff out of the way so that we don't have to bust up the concrete smart. So look like you put in a lot of work. I didn't see anything in there really that I couldn't support. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Mr. Rogers?
The checklist is a great addition for those that are doing business with the city, and I look forward to seeing more checklists for those that are customers for the city of Terrell.
we're happy to blaze a trail and set a standard.
So council will see this TCSS next Tuesday?
Well,
Monday.
You'll be lonely next Tuesday, Mayor, but 2 weeks from tonight, we will be here with an ordinance on first reading.
The mayor will be here next Tuesday. If you want to come next Tuesday, I'll be in this spot. I don't know anywhere else to be but here on Tuesday night. I'm sorry. So it'll be Monday, May the 5th, right? Is that what you said?
November 29th.
November 29th. Sorry.
November 29th.
All right, let's get these dates right. Got it.
Okay.
November.
Mayor,
Mr. Rogers,
Mayor,
November.
Our current
29th.
plan, Mayor, if everything's pleasure of the council, is to be back November 29th with an ordinance on first reading.
Got it.
With second reading on December 5th.
13th.
Huh?
13th.
December 13th.
13th.
It wouldn't be a lawful second reading until the 13th.
All right. Our next item on the agenda is to discuss and consider an acquiescence to encroachment for 603 Crenshaw.
Been
Mr. Rogers.
practicing on that all week,
Man,
man.
I had nightmares about this word. Be honest with you. No, I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
Okay, we discussed this at great length, but again, I'll give a brief overview. We have 2 lots that are shown on the current map. And the goal was to replat those. They were replatted. If you'll go advance the slide, please. And so we're doing a right-of-way take on Crenshaw. If you'll go one more slide, please. Thank you. So you can see the portion of the house with the right-of-way take that we're doing on the replat on the Crenshaw side. It'll be about a 6-foot portion of the house will be within the right of way. If you'll advance the slide another time or two, please keep going. So Mary Gill drafted, we've done this before. It's been a few years since we've done it. We've done this before, drafted an acquiescence to encroach for the Smiths for this lot. And so with council approval of this document tonight, we will get them to sign that. We'll be able to sign the replat, and they'll be able to move on, and they're going to build a house on the corner there at Park and Crenshaw on one of the replat lots. And this house that's there now will stay like it is. And the document will tell, and before they sign the document, Ms. Thomas, I'll make sure that the Smiths are aware of what this means and make sure we go over that if anything happens to the current house that's there now, it'll have to be moved back from where it's at, and explain what that, and I'll get with Bobby as well. We'll explain that 50% rule to them as well.
All right. Does anybody have any comments on this acquiescence to encroachment? We got it presented to us last week. So is there any questions for Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers, what I'm hearing is that we move forward with this item, then ultimately it will still be the decision of the property owner based on the additional information that your staff will be providing to them regarding the kind of the 50% rule, some of the feedback and questions that Councilmember Holmes Thomas inquired about last time that you have answered today. Is that what I'm hearing?
We will explain it to them so they're clear when they sign this document that it stays just like it is unless there is, it meets the criteria where it needs to be demolished or removed. And there's certain criteria that means if more than 50% is damaged, if it's burned, and again, you get into some things that I need to pull out of the building code and get with Bobby on it. I want to make sure they're clear on that topic, and that's what Ms. Thomas had asked me about last week. We'll be clear on that before they sign the acquiescence document. They understand clearly what it means and that what will happen if something happens to the house, what their options are. They can still build on the lot. It'll still be a platted lot, still buildable and all that. But if the current house, well, if something happens to it, it will have to be moved back if it reaches a point where it has to be demolished.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Council, is there a motion on item 9.1?
Motion to approve the acquiescence to encroachment for 603 Crenshaw.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, and a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve item 9.1. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Next item on the agenda is 9.2. Discuss and consider update the floodplain management regulations. Ms. Chris Knapp.
Council and Mayor Carmona and Mr. Sims, this is an opportunity I've been waiting for a while and looking forward to. But he asked me not to embarrass him, but I told him it was too late. But no, it's been a pleasure working here. I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot going on. There's a lot to go on in the future. And I anticipate being up here a lot more in the future. So with that being said, we'll proceed. Come to you on first reading tonight and acceptance of the floodplain management system. The mayor received a letter from FEMA on October 11th stating that we need to review our floodplain management. They've changed from the FEMA and the maps on that. So they asked us to review that and approve it again. It's a renewal process that we go on in the future. These new maps do not change anything that as far as inside the county here, no one is affected, no one is added. So there's no one, basically, as you've had these previous discussions with Mr. Rogers, the only thing that's being changed is the date that is being added and being renewed. So that is the main thing out of this that's occurring on this. So no new news as far as this. I've been awarded the new title as floodplain management for the city of Terrell. I'm starting to award many hats as I go along. And so I'm anticipating that happen. He's enjoying dumping these items off, as he says. And he stops by and says, "Hey, come here." Well, I'm fixing to get a new task, a new hat or a new title or whatever. So anyway, with that, I bring to you for this approval on first reading. I'll take any questions that come up.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Snap? Thank you. Good job. Is there a motion on item 9.2?
I'll make a motion to approve item 9.2.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, the ordinance is 2940.
2940.
Restate?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor. May I make a motion to approve ordinance 2940?
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve ordinance number 2940. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with a unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is it's our consent agenda. We have 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3. Is there a motion to on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. At this time, we're going to adjourn into regular session. Reminder, our next meeting is November the 29th, Tuesday, November the 29th. At this time, we're going to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Where am I? I'm right here. Hold on, I got it. Discuss the following, Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. Section 551. Regarding economic development negotiations. We are now in executive session.
I gotta get you some, bring
Yeah.
supplement concoction.
Spark.
She bring you a gift basket.
She needs Spark Plus over there.
That's what she need. Yeah, that's exactly what she need.
All right, we're gonna reconvene into regular session and consider action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions?
Yes, I authorize our city manager to negotiate $170,000 contract with Next Court.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 4. We have a second from Grady